Okay, students, so now we're just going to do a quick revision of the whole chapter so that all of your concepts are brushed up and you are not confused about anything. Okay, let's go. So, first thing we studied was the structure of the human eye. We studied what the cornea was, which was the bulging outermost part, the jelly-like structure, the bulging part outside the eye. If the eye is like this, the cornea is a part of the eye that bulges out like this, right? It kind of bulges out like this. If this is your eye, this part that bulges out is the cornea. It is transparent, and that is where the light initially comes into the eye from. The iris and pupil. You always talk about the pupil first because the pupil is basically the opening. This opening from where opening inside from where the light actually enters into the eye, right? And the iris is what controls the size of the pupil. So the iris decides should the pupil be small to let a little less light in, or should the pupil be large to let more light in. When is it large? When is the pupil large? When it's a dark room and we have to see things more clearly. So we need more light that is being reflected by objects to enter our eyes so that we can see things clearly. And when it is super bright outside or someone shines a torch into your eyes, the iris becomes small to constrict or lessen the amount of light that enters your eye so as to not cause any eye damage. Okay. Eye lens. What is the eye lens? Eye lens is the lens that is present inside your eyes, which is responsible for the refraction of light and then the formation of image on the last thing that we have to study, which is the retina, which is basically the screen behind the eyes. At the back part of the eyes, the screen basically where the image, the real and inverted image of the object is formed. Okay. And then for additional information, here it's the optic nerve, and the optic nerve sends signals to your brain, and the brain finally decodes those signals and tells you what are the things and objects you are seeing. So as it says here, the pupil of an eye acts like a variable aperture. What does that mean? Variable aperture means that the size can be adjusted according to how much light needs to come into the eye. The size can be varied with the help of the iris. What is the next thing? The next thing says that the ability of the eye to focus on both nearby and distant object by adjusting its focal length is called the power of accommodation of the eye, which means that the ciliary muscles above and below the eye lens, if this is the lens, there are ciliary muscles above and below which contract and relax, and by the contraction and relaxation of the ciliary muscles, the size of the lens, the size of the convex lens becomes thick or thin. And we had studied that the width and the focal length are inversely proportional, right? So if the width increases, focal length decreases, and if the width decreases, the focal length increases. Okay. Now, the smallest distance at which the eyes can see objects clearly. I told you that there is a comfortable distance. Like if you keep things very near to your eye, if you try to read a book like this, very close to your eye, it would give you some eye strain and it would give you a headache. So, a comfortable distance at which objects supposed to be kept nearer to your eye is the least distance of distinct vision or the near point. And what is that? That is 25 centimeters for the eye, which is called the near point of the eye, or least distance of distinct vision. Okay. And similarly, what is here, it's not given. What is the far point? For a normal eye, far point is infinity. Okay. Now, the common refractive defects include myopia, hypermetropia, and presbyopia. Now, what are myopia, hypermetropia, and presbyopia? Myopia, I told you how to remember it. It's a smaller name. It's so to say like nearer to you. So it's called nearsightedness. And nearsightedness means near sight, which means you can only see things that are near to you, right? Or you call them short-sighted people. Okay. So that means objects that are closer to you, you can see perfectly clearly. That means your near point is perfect. But your far point, which is supposed to be infinity, which I said that in practical purposes, not like infinity, but like 4 meters, 5 meters. Your infinity means like a very large distance. So your far point is supposed to be infinity, but instead of infinity is somewhere closer than infinity. That means your far point is not very far. So you can't see objects that are closer, you can't see objects that are far away from you. So what happens in that case? The image is formed somewhere here. Again, you can remember it by remembering near the eye lens is the image formed. So what do we need? We need a lens which can diverge these rays and make them meet here on the retina or the screen of the eye. So what is a diverging lens? A concave lens. So a concave lens of suitable power depending upon how weak the eyes of the person are. Okay. Now hypermetropia is far-sightedness, because hypermetropia you can remember like it's a longer word, so it's like far from you. A longer word would be far from you, and it's called far-sightedness. That means far-sighted means you can see things clearly that are far away from you, but you can't see things closer to you. That means you can't see something that is kept at your near point, say 25 centimeters. So your near point is much farther away than 25 centimeters than the normal near point. And in hypermetropia, what happens? The image is formed far from the lens. So the image is formed somewhere behind the retina. What do we need to do? We need to converge these rays and make them meet at the retina. So what is the lens that would be used as a corrective lens? It would be a convex lens, because it is a converging lens. So a convex lens of suitable power is converging. I am going over this very quickly because it's a revision for you. I have covered it completely in detail in the previous videos. Okay. And presbyopia is farsightedness. I told you earlier also that presbyopia resembles hypermetropia, but hypermetropia can be because of like your genes. It can be a birth defect, or it can happen due to some accident, but presbyopia is something that happens over time with aging. This is because of the decrease in the flexibility. I just write decrease in flexibility of eye lens. That means with old age, because your eye lens has been used for so long, its flexibility tends to decrease. So you are not able to adjust. The eye lens is not able to adjust the focal length that quickly. That means the power of accommodation decreases. Okay, great. Now, we also learned what is dispersion. Dispersion is nothing but the splitting up of white light into its 7 spectral components. You can write here 7 component colors, which is violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, Vibgyor. Okay. Okay. And that band of the 7 colored components is also known as the spectrum. Okay. Spectrum of white light. That is what it is called. That 7 colored band, Vibgyor, is known as the spectrum of white light. Now, the scattering was the second phenomenon that we studied about. That is what causes blue color of sky and reddening of the sun. So, scattering was just the visible path of light. So, when the path of light becomes visible, that is known as the scattering of light. And the scattering is the reason for the sky to appear blue, because blue gets scattered the most, and that is why it reaches our eyes and we see the sky as blue. But at sunset, because the sun is far away, the blue gets scattered before and it is not able to reach our eyes, and the color that travels the distance and reaches our eye is red or orange. And similarly, when the sun is overhead at noon, almost no dispersion takes place, so the light that reaches our eyes seems to be white. Okay. Now, a rainbow is caused due to the dispersion of light. Why? Do you remember? Due to the tiny water droplets present in the atmosphere. If you remember, the light comes inside the water droplet, and when it exits, it is split or dispersed into the 7 components. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it disperses into the 7 component when it leaves that tiny droplet of water. Okay. And the Tyndall effect is what is observed by the scattering of light by very fine particles, like we saw in case of that colloidal solution of sulfur. Okay. That we see that the blue light is scattered, or we saw in the video that through the leaves of the trees, the path of the ray was beautifully visible to us. That is what is the Tyndall effect. Okay, students, so that's it for this chapter. We learned about the eye is the structure of the eye, defects in the eye, Tyndall effect, scattering, dispersion, atmospheric refraction. all of the beautiful concepts and very important concepts in physics. So make sure that you revise all of them, you brush up on all your topics, and you're confident with everything you are studying. I hope you enjoyed studying this chapter, students. Thank you and take care.